Around the world today, of course, commemorations and events marking the one-year anniversary of Vladimir Putin's barbaric invasion of Ukraine. It's amazing to think it's been a year, even more incredible to think of where we were this time last February and to have seen now the remarkable bravery and strength of the Ukrainian people. Remember, Putin's soldiers crossed the border last February with very little in supplies. They were carrying ceremonial uniforms instead. They genuinely thought they would take Ukraine in a matter of days and then they would have a great victory march into Kyiv. Now, how wrong they were. Around the world and continuing tonight, thousands stopped to mark the invasion with vigils and official events. In London, the actress Helen Mirren recited a poem at a vigil overnight in Trafalgar Square with this powerful speech.
And I would say, peace for Ukraine, democracy for Ukraine, and freedom for Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Closer to home in Canberra, Ukraine's ambassador to Australia, Vasyl Moroshenko, gave an equally moving address to the National Press Club.
It is hard to lay aside the emotions one feels about this horrible anniversary. But such is my task, to contain the hurt and the horror one holds in his heart for one's countrymen, and share some thoughts that aim to assure you of a singular key aspect: that Ukraine must win and that Ukraine will win.
So as we mark this important anniversary tonight, I'm joined now by two men who've spent plenty of time in Ukraine over the past year. James Spenceley, familiar face here on Credlin, the North Sydney councillor and businessman who was inspired to take action. He's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, a lot of it with support of my wonderful viewers, to travel to Ukraine and deliver ambulances and other crucial supplies. And Misha Zelinsky, a former Assistant Secretary at the AWU, who found himself in Ukraine last February and has since become the war correspondent in Ukraine for the Australian Financial Review. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program. Misha, you were in Ukraine last February when everything kicked off. Give us your reflections a year on.
Well, it's quite extraordinary to think that we're 365 days into Vladimir Putin's 24-hour war. Now, Peter, you were talking about the way the Russians were treating the war, that they expected to roll right over the Ukrainians in a day, maybe two. But so did the rest of the world. The rest of the world gave the Ukrainians little to no hope of holding on, which is why they probably weren't armed properly ahead of the war and ahead of the invasion. And those opening exchanges were really touch and go, and they're on their own. They knew they were on their own. It was those 3 to 4 or 5 days where by the 5th day it was clear that Ukraine was going to hold on and that Russia was probably not going to be able to take Kyiv, is when the world said, hang on, the Ukrainians are going all right, maybe we can send them some weapons, maybe we can consider some sanctions. And so, the world watched on as the Ukrainians fought and died for their country, and it was, really quite scary, obviously, being inside there. The Russians were 5 kilometres away from my hotel, which is far too close to be near a Russian tank division. But being there as an eyewitness to that level of bravery, when the history of this is written, it won't just be about the Ukraine war. In many ways, it's about the future of democracy. And that bravery, I think, has turned the show around in this struggle against autocrats everywhere.
I think that's what the world has responded to, hasn't it, James? The fact that they're fighting both for their own country and their own families, but in the name of democracy for all of us. What, remind my viewers again, what inspired you as you watched this play out? You got a day job in Sydney, you're a busy man, you've put your hand up now. What tipped you into action?
We always support the underdog, and to see the Ukrainians fight back, and to fight back so bravely, to see I think it was the babushka who gave the seeds to the Russian soldier and said, put it in your pocket, so when you die on my land, at least something good will grow from you. Those are the kind of moments that really I felt like I needed to do something, and luckily I was in the position to be able to do that. So, yeah, we put in the plan into action, and we wanted to bring soldiers back to their families. And as you know and your viewers know, we took a lot of ambulances, and we're bringing ambulances there ever since.
Misha, the longer these things drag on, you understand this with the news cycle, other events occur around the world. We've had that horrific earthquake in Turkey and Syria as an example, and our attention moves away. It's terrific to see the federal government today put money on the table and more resources into Ukraine. And Richard Marles make it very clear we will stay there till the end. How do we keep the focus on Ukraine?
Well, it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a busy world, and the great challenge for people like Vasil, the ambassador, and even right up to Vladimir Zelinsky is to continue to make this at the top of the pile for the world and for Australia. So for Australians sitting here saying, well, Ukraine's a long way away, this is an Eastern European land war. Well, it's far bigger than that. Australia's a democracy of 25 million people. We're occupying a continent, and we can't afford to see autocrats gobble up democracies of mid-size similar to Australia. And so what happens in Ukraine matters everywhere. Our fates are intertwined. And so the safest and easiest way to keep Australia safe and prevent a war in our region is to make sure Vladimir Putin loses. And so we really need to be escalating our aid to Ukraine. We've sent 90 Bushmasters, which is welcome, a bunch of other things. But we've got 1,200 Bushmasters. We've got 56 Abrams tanks. So why aren't they going there? I agree with Anthony Albanese when he says we're not going to see a land war in Queensland. So the question becomes, why are these very sophisticated weaponry? What good are they here if the fight's in Ukraine and we consider that to be central to our interests, which it is, then we should send that equipment there. And, I think the case is made every day. The moral case is obvious, but it's actually good national security policy for Australia to assist this victory and for it to happen as quickly as possible.
Look, 100%, I couldn't agree more. I made the point at the top of the show, there's a whole lot of Bushmasters sitting in a warehouse near the Brisbane airport. They should be on a plane and in Ukraine.
Absolutely.
Just quickly, Misha, because I want to go back to James for the final word. You've been up close and personal with the Zelenskys. Give us some insight.
Well, I interviewed Vladimir Zelensky's wife, the First Lady, Olena Zelenska. There's a saying, Peter, behind every great man, there's a great woman. And Olena Zelensky is an incredible character. She's basically become the mother of the nation of Ukraine, and she's got an extraordinary capacity to generate a lot of empathy. And when I was talking to her, she was rattling off the statistics of all the people that have died in Ukraine and the children that have been murdered, and that ratchets up every day. And then in the middle of that, she was able to pivot and tell me from specific strikes the names and the interests and the ages of people that had died. And it was really quite touching. And when I said to her, what can we do? She said, look, we obviously need weaponry. We obviously need more aid. But what we need most of all from Australia, a democracy a long way away where our interests are interlinked. We need your emotions, were her words. Don't forget about us, and please don't give up on us. And that's the message she gave to Australians, and that's the one that I think we need to keep ramming home as we are right now, Peter. And I think it's really great to see you talking about it, and great to see people like James going there and providing that assistance. And we all need to be doing that, whether it's lobbying our governments, donating, or doing what James is doing. It's all incumbent upon us to do it, because it all makes a difference, and Ukraine will win. They're winning right now, so let's make them win as quickly as possible.
All right, James, you can take us to the break. I mean, what's your plans this year, and what do you need from us?
Well, look, we've got another trip in May. We're bringing custom-built ambulances, food for the previously occupied villages. So, look, any support we can get to our website would be fantastic. But the resolve of the Ukrainian people is as strong as it's ever been. Last trip there, we were without power in hotel rooms, and I said to people along the way, how do you survive without power? And they said, well, we're Ukrainians. We live for centuries without power. We can live, for 4 hours of power a day. So the spirit's there. We've just got to help them as much as we can. And it's an investment in democracy, not a donation.
Well, thank you to my viewers. I know you've helped before. You can help again. I would be very grateful. James Spenceley, Misha Zelinsky, thank you very much for your time.